So no, that's good, mate. Well done, though. Was it good fish?
No,
No.
it was only low 40s.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Trying to go
So some seasons it starts off a really big fish straight up, but generally it starts off smaller. We find the biggest ones around July, so we're pretty early in getting into this, but we've got so many other seminars to get through. We've pushed it forward just maybe by about 3 or 4 weeks. So, but June, July is theoretically the best time to catch big snapper out here. August is still good, September is still good, but now is the start. So, how many people are from Brisbane way? Few of you, and you guys fish. How many people fish, say, the northern end of Moreton? A couple of you, and the bottom end down to as far as the pin. Yep. Yep. Okay. So, and Tweed way. Anyone from Tweed Heads way? Okay. So, you guys fish up to Southport sort of area?
just
Of Palmy. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good. So, I try to cover all bases. So tonight we'll be talking about from sort of south of Caloundra, I guess, so top of Moreton, down to maybe New Brunswick. Okay, so the marks that are on the sheet, which we'll talk about a bit later as well, cover sort of in that area. But predominantly it's at the front here because that's the biggest area. And obviously a lot of people come down from Brisbane to fish the Gold Coast because the seaway is generally pretty good, but at the moment it's not very good. But this weekend the weather looks really good, so recap on the weather first. Firstly, who's going out this weekend? I'd reckon most of you would be. Yeah, well, it's the first good weekend we've had since Easter, but Easter swell is too big, as you all know. And this weekend looks a start off similar. So tomorrow is still like 2.5 on the sets, and it's been cracking. I spoke to one of the charter boat guys in today, and he said even today it was cracking across it on the sets at low tide in the morning early. I was on the first to run in. So we've got low tide in the morning. That's the problem, right? Same as Easter. So just be really careful if you're going to go out. The bite period, though, there is a bite period right on the crack of low tide each morning over the weekend, but the best bite time is about mid-morning, sort of 9 to about 1. So you don't need to go too early on that low tide if you don't have to. And that's if the bite period works as they say. Anyhow, how many guys have got boats here under 5 metres? Okay, and do you guys go out to 36s in your boat?
Yep.
You'll,
I've been there once.
once, mate? Yep.
24s.
Okay, mainly 24s. Okay, and boats sort of obviously rescue over 5 metres. So you can get to. Any you guys not been out to the 50s that have got boats over 5 metres? Haven't been out there? Oh, no.
We're only new to it.
Okay. Well, so I'll give you some idea. 24 fathoms, 10 k's out. 36 is about 20 k's out. 50 is about 40 k's out on average. If you get it that way, it becomes 50 k's sort of thing. So just always understand your boat, understand the weather, and understand the current. Current's really important. It can make it very rough out there, okay? Especially bottom fishing. Different when you're trolling, you can go with it and whatever, but when you're bottom fishing and reversing into current and wind, against wind, it can be a little bit dangerous. A wave can crack and roll in the back of the boat. Anyhow, that's another story. Okay, so we'll start off on the bottom fishing. So, well, you can bottom fish in close, and I will tell you that the fishing in closer works better float lining. But in saying that, my son Jack, who's downstairs at the moment, loves to fish. He doesn't like fishing just bait. He likes to fish some sort of lure. But so he will use like the dress type rigs with the little fuzzy stuff on it. Because he classes that as a lure, he's got a pilchard of squid on there. But he uses that, and he uses like a half-pound lead or 12-ounce sinker on fishing on the 18-fathom reef, and he pulls up 5 or 6 kilo, even 8 kilo snapper, and I'm trying to float line catch them, you know. So it does work, but generally speaking, in close under 50 metres, it's better to use very small sinkers, which we'll talk about later, float linings. But if you are into just bottom fishing style with a paternoster, then you can do it in close. 36 fathom reef, which is the 65 metres out further. The fish don't really care as much out there. Float line is still very good, but you have the option of also bottom fishing for the snapper out there, okay? So it's a bit of both. 50 fathom reef, I don't care at all. They're a different snapper. They will take a float out there, but a float out there is a bit like using a snapper lead. It's like an 8 or 10 ball sinker, which is pretty heavy, right? So in that case, there's something like that sort of size. So in that case, we're nearly bottom fishing anyhow. So it doesn't matter, and just use a bigger sinker. So if I was fishing the 24 fathom reef or 18 fathom reef, I'm trying to use about a 4 ounce or maybe a 6 or an 8 ounce maximum size. So that's a 4 ounce. I'll pass this around. That's an 8 ounce, just in case you don't know. It is lead. Okay, don't pick your teeth or something after. The most I've ever used on a 24 fathoms is a 12 ounce, and that's if it's blowing like 15 knots and there's a bit of current. But I try not to. And then matched with that, so we'll start the tackle, we'll work our way up to catching them, okay? So depending on the wind and the current and everything is what is going to determine what sort of sink you're going to use. So if I pull up and I'm doing like drifting at about 1.5 to 3 k's an hour, I'll have to use at least an 8 ounce, even if I'm only using 30-pound braid. It's just forever letting out the line. It's just, it doesn't work. If you should all learn to back up your boats, okay? Your motor should never turn off when you're drift fishing, unless you got a really good day like maybe this weekend where it's only blowing 5 to 10 knots and just a gentle drift. In that case, I'll turn the motor off and maybe just reverse it every now and then. If you've got electric, that's even better. You can just sort of just cruise along with it, sort of thing.
Can you use a balloon?
You can use a balloon like a sea anchor. Yeah. Definitely you can, mate, but I wouldn't deploy it unless it's blowing about 15 knots. Yeah, but white capped, so to speak. Yeah. I just find it still works. If you've got current and no wind, it will slow you down a little bit as well. And it sort of goes in and out all the time, if that makes sense. Yeah. So it surges a bit. But if you've got wind, it's a general sort of drift. So we're talking about a big windsock, guys. So if you go to one of those, I'd recommend getting one that's probably half the size of the boat again. So if it says it's suitable for a 9-metre boat, then that would suit a 6-metre boat. Does that make sense? And if it's suitable for a 6-metre boat, you get a 4.5, and then it'll suit your 4.5. So go bigger size. They work better. So getting back to the paternoster rig. So that's synthesised, depends on the wind and the current. If I've only got like, I've only drifting like 0.6 of a kilometre an hour on my GPS and it's very slow, then I'll use if I'm going to use a paternoster, about a 4 ounce or an 8 ounce, which is what's going around at the moment. My rig is going to be, I generally like to have, one is somewhere I think, something like this fella here. I generally like to have about 3 lots of hooks on my paternoster. Sorry. Okay, so sinker on the bottom, it's an 8 ounce sinker on the bottom there. I like to use either a circle or an octopus. It's very personal what you like on your paternoster rig. I like to use circle more than octopus. So a circle hook, the fish does the hooking for you most of the time. Paternoster, you strike at it, okay? I still strike with a circle because it's habit, but most of the time the fish catch themselves. And the reason being is because that's taut, right? So your line's tight, get that away. The line's tight, but this is loose. And when the fish grabs it and pulls on it, the hook just hooks it into the fish. And when you put a circle hook on, you must put it from the front. So always go from the side that the hook's on, okay? That the barb's on. You come in from that angle. Don't ever go from the back of it, okay? You put it from the back, the hookup rate's about halved. So put it from the front. Next we've got a bead. I like a bit of paraphernalia on there, okay? Nothing worse than rigging up about 6 of these the night before, get them all ready to go, and you drop over and get a snag and lose it first drop. But anyhow, that's what happens. But does anyone here not know how to do a dropper rig loop? Don't be shy and put your hand up. Okay, so for a long time. So you should learn to do that. We don't sell it here, but you know how you can get the rig made, I think it's called the pre-rig sort of one. You should learn to tie your own paternoster, okay? And it's really quick, really easy. And some guys will just do the dodgy way, which is like that. They'll do a loop, and they'll go around the finger, and they'll pull it off, and that's it. And then they'll go and do another one up the track a bit further. So, but that's not the right way to do it. So I'm just going to quickly show you how to do it properly, and then we'll keep going on. So the proper way to do it, and we can show you downstairs as well. I'll do a big loop. So we just do a big loop, okay? Just loop like so. It's a bit hard from guys down the back here. Hold it up higher. I'll try and do it up high. Yeah, you can see. So like so. And then this one here crosses over the top of this one back. So it's sort of back, that's on the front, okay? Facing me. Then I drop down to here, and I got this piece here and this piece here, which is the main line. And I wrap these around each other around about 5 times. Now this is the tricky part. So this loop here, I put it from underneath through that loop, and I hold the 2 bits of main line, and I pull it up. But you've got to pull it up equal. If you pull it up just one side, it slips out. Okay, if you pull it up equal, keep judging it equal. Once you get to there, you should wet it, and then you just pull it tight. Okay, then that's it. And it's in line, it's nice and neat. Okay, and you just go along a metre, and you do the same again. This one's already, that's the bottom one, sorry. That's the bad one, up to here. So when you get really good at it, it's just really, really quick. So it's just round, round, round 5 times, pull it through the middle, pull it straight and even, and then go to the next one. So you sit down and do the whole lot of your leader that you've got in your bag there, and then wind it back on to the leader roll. The same deal, but at least you know how to tie the knot. So it's good practice. You should get around about, on 50 metres, you should do around about 35 to 40 of those loops, and space them at about around 500-600 apart. Okay? So that's going to give you at least 10 to 15 rigs, say, if you're doing 3 hook rigs. So that's that part done. So getting back to our rig over here. So my first hook, I'm using, in close, I'm using like about a 5/0 circle hook. And I use a bit of CUNY tube, which is a tube you can buy, and the little beads, which I think you got in your bag there. And the bead goes on closest to the hook. Okay. I come up about 500 or 600 mil. I've done exactly the same again. And the reason why I do 3 is because that's what I like to do in all depths. I just feel I get one fish on, especially trailing Jew, and then you get a second one on, and you got 2 fish coming up. If you drop down with just 2 hooks on, get a bite, miss it, the chances are you will get another bite, but you may not. So you got to wind back up again, rebait, go back down again. But 3, you got more chance of staying down in the zone, because once you pull your line back up, you've drifted over that reef and you've missed the shot. So the longer it's in the area, the better. So my top one, which is closest to my swivel, so it's a fair way up the line, there's a sinker there, so it's about 1.5 meters up. I like to dress it up a bit. So this is dressed hooks, and I've still got the same bit of tube and bead on there, but I've put a little skirt on there, a little Lumo skirt. They're dressed gang hooks, but you could use this normal gang hooks, are fine as well, but I find that's the secret. Just using a little bit of a Lumo skirt, whatever it may be, or even other things that we use like on float lining, which I'll show you a bit later, will work as well. But just something on that front one. Has anyone tried that yet? Please do. It's the difference. It's a game changer.
Is there a law on how many you can have?
6 hooks. 6 hooks. Now, guys say to me, can you use 3 gang hooks? 3 gang hooks, that's 9 hooks, right? But a hook is classed as 1 apparatus, I think it is. So 6 apparatuses on your line. I think you've got 6 hooks in a row on 6 slots. That's still classed as 6 hooks, 6 rigs, yeah. So, yeah, that's it. But I wouldn't put 6 on. It's too hard. By the time you get the 3rd one on, the other 2 have fallen off. Well, that's like a long line, that's right. That is like a long line.
Is that top loop longer than the other ones, or just the length of the...
So I like to make that, you're spot on. I like to make the top one a bit longer because I've got a pilchard on there. So my bait now, I'm using on these 2, I'm using squid. Sometimes when I'm fishing out, say, the 100 metre line at the 50 fathom reef, I'll use a bit bigger hook. I'll use a 6.0 or 7.0 instead of a 5. And what I'll do is I'll put I cut a pilchard in half, and I put the eye, through the eye of the pilchard, and that's it, it just goes through the eye of the pilchard. Then I'll put a piece of squid on the end to hold the pilchard in place. As I talk about, same with cod and everything, they bite on it, the pilchard gets all mulched up, and they come back and have a second hit and go hard on it. So it's like a burley on each of those 2 hooks there. This one's just going to work in because it's got a pilchard on it. If you want to use a whole squid on there, that's fine. If you want to use a fillet of slimy.
So the pilchard and squid, you're saying you're only using that when you're out on the...
Yeah, when I'm out in the 50s, because it's a bigger hook. It's a bit too packed on that little hook in close, so I'll just use squid on there. Yeah, so if I'm using 5/0 hooks, I just use squid or a piece of yellowtail or slimy cut, just a piece of flesh. Don't go through too much, guys. You don't want to choke the hook, so to speak. Even if you're using like flesh bait, even if something's got good skin on it, if you just go through once, and I'll just draw this. Sorry if you can't see from behind me, but if that's the fillet, that's not a good one. If that's the fillet there, just oversized, but imagine that's about that big, that fillet off a yakka. A lot of the time I'll just go through here and the rest just hangs down. And it flaps and it just works better. The more action you can give your lure, hence the feathers and all the crap on top of that gang hook, the more it's got going on like lifelike, the more aggressive they attack it. If it's just sitting there like a piece of stale or whatever, they don't go as hard on it. It's not as interesting to them. This is just from experience from doing it, it works better. If I was to go through there 3 times and crunch it up on my circle hook, nowhere near the fish hookup rate, nowhere near the bites. Okay. If it's a bigger fillet, I might go through twice, but not on a 5/0 hook anyhow. And squid, squid is only one thing I will go through twice, because squid is a bait where they seem to peck at it and peck at it and peck at it, rather than just aggressively attack it. If you've got a whole squid on the gang hook, it's fine. They'll hit that pretty hard. But if you're using a stripped squid in a long one, you might just go through twice and still have it hanging down a bit at the bottom. Just got to work it out. But don't chock up the hook too much. Little hooks. If you want to use just like an octopus hook, which is just like a standard hook, which I think you guys have got in a 5/0, say, that's a pretty popular size. The difference is it just hasn't got the curved point on. They can't sit on the back, but again, this one here, you've got to strike at it. Sometimes they hook themselves up, but generally you've got to strike at it to hook the fish. There's a technique in doing that too, which I'll show you in a moment. Has anyone here like got the knack of getting 1 on, getting 2 on, maybe even 3? Has anyone done that before? And held your fish on there? Hold them on's the hardest part, right? Because they fall off. The other one falls off. So, sorry? I use circles here. Circles holds one a lot better. You're correct, mate. And also I find if you can just keep the weight on of the sinker, so it's like a tiny little bit of slack. You'll get the second bite, and the first one won't fall off. If you drop it back down the bottom again and try to get a second bite with slack in your line, it always falls off. Circle not too bad though, but J hooks they do. So how do you do that? Depends if you use an overhead. How many people here use overheads for bottom fishing? Spin? So more spin than overhead. That's interesting. Big bait runners are good. Yeah, bait runners are very good. When you're fishing away, right? I'll just use this for an example. When your lines, if you don't mind just pulling that line here, mate, if you don't mind. So when you're fishing at the back of the boat and your line's on sort of like that angle there, or even a bit more, it's very hard to hook the fish and very hard to feel the bites, okay? If I was to back the boat up and that become loose like that, straight away the fish are going to bite, because it just becomes more natural to them down on the bottom. It's not getting dragged at an angle. So the bait's all of a sudden just like free falling, and that's when they hit it pretty hard, right? But once you hook that first fish and you've got him bouncing on the end there, just hold, yeah, thank you. Just hold the tip up. Actually let a bit more line out so it's a bit higher up so you can see it. So you've got the fish bouncing on the end there, right? And you can feel that, and you just drop the tip just enough so that the line just takes up the slack, which means the sinker's just laying on the bottom. And that's when you'll get normally a second bite straight away, because his mates are interested in what he's doing. And then you'll get the second one, and then it's loaded up. It's quite heavy. It's bouncing around quite good. And that's when you then obviously pull it up, okay? But if your line's out on that angle, first it's hard to hook the first fish. Secondly, it's hard to even get close to hooking the second fish. And generally it's just too hard. The only time I've ever done really well on the angle and the current's ripping is as soon as it hits the bottom. A lot of time if you let a bit of slack and you take that slack up, they're sometimes already on there, or the bite's already happening. But other than that, once it gets taut, you won't get it's very hard to get a bite. So thanks mate. Learn to back the boat up. and do it that way. So
How can you boat up superficial? Like
no, because so deep, mate.
24s?
24s, no, not at all, no. And if anything, might turn them on because there's a bit of noise. I don't know. It definitely attracts the sharks, though, unfortunately. That's a bad part of our motors. And they know electrics, they know sound of pinging. The sharks know everything. It's part of the parcel these days. Has anyone had problems with sharks on snapper at all at front here? Yeah, they're really bad. And I was speaking to that charter boat guy today because the Kobe have been on really good the last week, just let you know that too. The whales are obviously not far, but they're always in front of the whales, and then they hang around with the whales, and then they stay after the whales are gone. So massive schools of Kobe work all the way up our coast from down south, and they just rock up now, May, and they're out there now, and the average size at the moment is around about sort of 8 to 10 kilo, but once the whales get here, they'll be up to sort of 30 or 40 kilos. Problem being is the sharks are really bad, and the same thing with our snapper season this year, because we've had a lot of sharks during the mackerel season this year, more than last year. So when you get a good snapper on, it's going to get probably chewed. And how can you beat that? Well, I'm generally fishing really light. I'm rarely fishing on this in close. So I'm talking about in close at the moment. 36 is not as bad. 50s is even definitely not as bad. But the sharks out the front here are really bad. That's where everyone fishes. They know, as I was saying before, they know the boat noise. They know everything. So you just got to wind fast. Simple as that. Wind fast. Try and get your mate to be the scapegoat.
So when you're at the 50s and you drop,
yes.
you just reverse the boat if there's a...
Yep, I'm going to show you on the map thing here how to do it in a moment. But definitely you need to do a blind drift every time you do a bottom drop. Which way are you going? And then overshoot it by a little bit, and then calculate to land on the X, which is the start of the pinnacle maybe. And so when I pull up, I try and ask the boat into the wind sort of thing. So I know it's going to blow that way, right? Even though sometimes you're drifting against the wind with the current if it's a bit stronger. And then I'll pull up, and generally when the lines are sort of about 2/3 the way down, or nearly at the bottom, I'll then reverse it. So that last 10 or 15 metres, I've caught up with the lines, and even maybe overshot them a bit. So the guy's saying, hey, my line's out the front of the boat, don't worry, it's going to catch a fish. So it's just gone past directly down, so it's now in front of the boat. And as soon as I pull it back to neutral, it's going to straight away take up the slack, and it's there, then it'll be there, you know. But that's when you get the bites in that period. And then I won't put it, because every time you put it in reverse, it generally pulls you off to the left or to the right, and you're trying to beeline for the pinnacle. So you can't, once you can reverse all the time and keep trying to keep those lines down nice and vertical, when you shouldn't be doing it, because half the time you're not up to the next pinnacle yet, right? So it's just sand or rubble, or it might not be many fish there. So don't waste it. Wait till you get near the next one, and as you get closer to the next one, then you reverse up again, bring everyone's line back to there. Then all of a sudden, he'll get a bite, he'll get a bite, he'll get a bite. Does that make sense? Yep. But getting back to this one here, so if you're using an overhead, always just let out a bit of slack. So when you're doing that drift between where you're not actually reversing up, just let out a bit more line. As I was saying before, as soon as it hits the bottom, you might get a bite straight away at that second or 2 seconds before it goes taut, and then you don't get any bites until you let a bit more line again. But once it gets too much angle like we had before, you need to then reverse back up and just take up a bit of slack for the boys that are fishing with you, and do it again. The only hard part normally is like people say, well, when should I bring my line up and drop it back down again? If someone's got a bite and your line's way out the back and he's down, he's just dropped down, he's got a bite straight away, I always wind straight up as quick as I can without losing my baits off the hooks, and then quickly drop it straight back down again. Does that make sense? Yeah, because that's when you're going to get fish again straight away, because your line's just gone the point of no return. It's too far out the back. And I don't want to reverse up, because then I'm going to pull myself off my target that I'm trying to go to. So there's a lot to it, but if you can work all that out, you just catch a lot of fish.
So you're not drifted?
I'm drifting. I am drifting. I'm drifting.
Sink, isn't it? Hooking up, it's going on.
So the sinker, it does hook up on the bottom, but the more line you let out, the more chance of hooking up on the bottom, by the way, because it drags on the bottom, right? If it's vertical, Sometimes you can drop it into a bunch of wireweed or something, or kelp, or whatever it may be, and you got to pull it out. It does come out most of the time, but if you're using too light a line, it's quite awkward to get it out. You end up snapping the line most times. So how many people who fish with like 50-pound braid bottom dropping? Yeah, I would recommend using 50 at least. If you're using mono, 30 is not too bad, but 50 in braid, if not even 65 or 80 is even better again, because you can pull out most snags, mate. You can pull out
What
most.
about leader size?
Leader's 80 pound. Yeah, but your knots are probably going to break at about 55 or 60 under your braid strength normally. Yeah. Unfortunately, your knots are not the same strength as the line, unless you got real good knots. I don't know. But so if you get snagged up, and say the guys wind their lines up, you can try, and if it's not too much current or wind, you can try and reverse back up past it and pull it back the other way, and it may pop off. There's some reefs you fish are really bad, and we all know that. They're just sinker killers, and you just get snagged up and lose it. It's just the way it is in that area. Then other ones you pull through, and it's like I was saying, like wireweed or whatever it may be, kelp or whatever, it actually will pull out of it. So it depends what reef you're fishing.
So those GPS marks for you.
Yeah, they are.
You gotta keep coming back to one.
Some are designed to make more money if they're sinker killers. No, just joking. No, they're all good spots, mate. Yeah, that's a good call. So if you, and I brought this along to show you, if you use like swivels, whether they be three-way or crane three-way swivels or the inline crimping ones, they will eliminate a bit of twisting, but I find these, I bought these around because I don't want you to use these. We hardly sell these anymore because these things twist your line more than that paternoster knot. They're really bad. But using a good swivel on the top is a good start. Sinker-wise, look, if you're using mono, you get more twist than you will with braid, definitely, I believe. If you braid, you get a lot less twist in your line. And if you're using a spin reel, you get a bit more twist than you're using an overhead. Yeah.
You said something about cutting the tail off the pilly?
Yeah, so that's a good thing too. Yeah, so cut the tail off the pilcher doesn't do the helicopter thing. But I only do that if you've got the inline type swivels, because it spins on the swivel, does that make sense? Yeah. If you're using a gang hook with the swivel on the top, it will do that as well. If you're using just an inline one, it can't do it. Yeah, if it's just hooked through the loop, it doesn't do it. We'll come back to that later. So spin reel, just imagine this is a big heavy rod. Okay, if you've got a spin reel and you're bottom fishing and we're letting the line out, you can't do much. You don't want to undo your drag and let it out. You've got to undo the bail, but run it through your fingers. And the reason you run it through your fingers is you can let it go fairly loose, but you'll feel the fish take it. You'll feel it flick a bit faster, or you'll feel sometimes a bit of a boom, boom, boom as it's going through your fingers, because it's got a bit of weight on the other end being the sinker. And you'll get that feel, like I said with the overhead, when it hits that bottom part, you'll feel it straight away. But if you just open the bail up and let it fall out, you don't know. And then you go to wind up later, you have felt a bite, and the baits are gone because they've robbed you at that point.
Does that apply for float lining as well?
Look, float lining, it's generally light enough, the tips of the rods are light enough to see it happen. I imagine it's a heavy rod, like not broomstick style, but heavier. So float lining is a little bit different, and the line's lighter, and you'll generally see the lines floating on the top end. You'll see it zip out through the water quite fast on the sink, or if you let a bit of line out. Where this way, because you've got the sink on, it's quite fast falling. The only way you can feel that point where it's just about to hit the bottom is through your finger. Yeah. Again, it's practice that it'll come. Yeah. But a lot of guys won't hold the line because when you're drifting with a spin reel and you got a pound of lead on, I don't know if you guys experienced this, but I guess you would have. If you hold it with your finger, you have to get a lot of cut fingers because you strike with no strike and it zipped and cuts your finger, right? We've all had it, I think. So a lot of people don't like to hold their line at all. They'll use the rod only and try and feel it through the rod. Depends on your rod. If it's an old school broomstick, it won't work. If one of the newer type rods is a little bit more tip action, even like that one there, where you can sort of see, even if it's a pound of lead that's going to be probably bent around there somewhere. So you'll see it happening, right? But if it's a thicker one, it's very difficult to do that. So you'll need to hold it. And how do you stop your fingers from cutting? It's a really hard one. You can't. If you put a sleeve on, you don't feel as good. If you put like a hand lining sleeve over your finger, it doesn't work as good. And it's always in the way. It's annoying. So anyhow, that's just something you guys got to sort out. But I suggest using a bit lighter tip rods. Okay, if you're using, because most of you are using spin reels, so it's a scenario when you're bottom fishing with heavy lead that just happens. Any questions on that at all? And that sort of things. Reel size. If I'm fishing with the snapper lead, so that 4 ounce that went around, I'm probably going to use around about a size, a 5,000 size reel or a 6,000 size at the smallest. 8 would be perfect. If I'm fishing a 12 ounce sinker, an 8's still fine. If I'm fishing a 16 ounce sinker or a 20 ounce sinker, a 10 or a 14 would be better in the reel size. Does that all make sense? Yeah. So, and 50 pound braid minimum, preferably, when you're bottom fishing. That's probably about it on that one there. Just one other thing too with the rigs, getting back to here. Before I was talking about the slack. So when you let that line out, this goes like that, and the baits straight away just flop around a lot more, and they're tight. They still flop around, but they don't flop around as much. So try and do as much as you can of your lines, like your sinker's on the bottom, but your line's semi-loose. And that's how you get a lot more fish. Try not to have it tight. Unfortunately, when it gets out a bit, it's always tight, but try not to have it tight at all throughout the whole morning that you're fishing. Try and always have it loose. But that doesn't mean have lots of line out. You've got to be in contact with it the whole time, but just a little bit loose. Even just a sinker on the bottom and the line going from that to that is enough to get bites compared to no bites. It's like that all the time, you won't get as many bites. Does that make sense? The most important thing actually for bottom fishing is loose line. So that's why you all know, you get bites when you back up, you get bites when you drop a bit of line out. They like the slack line. It doesn't matter if you're fishing in 30 metres deep or fishing in 330 metres deep, it's the same scenario for all types of fish.
You're saying you back up, is that just because you drift too much?
Yeah, the line's going out too fast.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it if it's going to be like, say, 5 knots. I just turn the motors off and drift. Yeah, but if my line's getting out too far, then I might back up then. Particularly if I've got a reef about to come up, just so my lines are ready for it. I don't want to be out there when I'm going to cross over a good area, mate. Yeah. So, like my dad never used to back up when I was a young guy. I don't know because the fumes are so bad, I can't remember. He used to use a parachute though. So parachute's the anchor, always. Yeah. It slows you down. Yeah, just enough to sort of, and it takes away the backing up thing all the time. Because if you're on your own, or you're trying to run 2 rods at one time, or you're trying to look after your mates, or whatever it might be, and you're trying to fish at the same time, it's very hard to back up, see what their lines are, hold your rod, and do it at the same time. If you're trying to do 2 rods at the same time, plus do all that, it's very difficult, unless you're good at it.
Has
So,
the current slowed up out yet?
yeah, it has, yeah. I think, I checked yesterday, it was 0.9 per knot. So, yeah, it's not too bad.
The current just, I'm not too sure.
Summer.
It's just going one way. Does it go
No,
north,
the
south,
changes
south,
are,
north?
because we're in like an eddy here, so from point look out to Tweed Heads, there's a big bay here. So once you get out to about 100 metres, it runs south all the time, most of the time. It does run sometimes east-west, but they're bigger eddies, upwellings, right? But the general current always runs north-south. But because we're in this area here, sometimes the current will hit sort of around Tweed and then push back up the coast, and we'll get a northerly current on the 24s, you know. But if you go out another 5k or 10k, it's running south. So it's just because we're in this bay. Yeah. If that makes sense. Yeah, good question. It's when the water warms up and the whole east coast current starts to kick in, the Nemo current, whatever you call it. But it it sort of starts about, it starts up around about, on most times around the bottom end of the Swains or sort of off Gladstone, and it goes right down to Sydney or further. And it's just one big current. And it happens every year. It starts around about October, and then sort of dies off around now, around May. So winter's when our best bottom fishing is not much current, generally. Yeah.
What app do you use to see the current?
That's a good question. I use two apps. The cheapest side is just Bon. So Bon has a current on there as well, and you can see the current, and you can see which way it's going as well as little arrows as well. And I'll give you some sort of idea on the speed. It also has water temp as well. And when we get, if you got say constant 20, say let's go back to say 2 months ago, it was 26-degree water temperature, and say you're going to get to the 50s for the day, and you're going past the 36 fads and it's 26 degrees or 26.5, and then you get out to 100 metres deep and it's 24. So if you went out a little bit further, it might only be 23. That's when they get the yellowfin stuff like that, because it's called an upwelling. So you get like a reverse current. So it's an eddy that comes from the bottom up, and it runs clockwise. Okay, and it makes the water cooler, but it's only short-lived, because once that current gets its hold of it again, it pushes it out of the way. Like a high, I guess, in low system sort of thing in that. Getting back to what you asked, the other app is Windy. So Windy has if you go Windy Pro, it has all these beneficial things you can get. Everything, like mine's got about like 15 columns on it. So check everything. And it has the flow at the moment, because my phone's over there, so I can't use it right now. But I can show you later. I think it was around about 1 knot. If I go out to say, you can punch in the area too. So you can look at the weather on the 18s, the 24s, the 36s based upon satellite. And I'll tell you the speed of the current. But if you want to get right into it, you get other apps that can be $400 or $500 a year that the pro fishermen use. Okay. Yep. Any other questions on that at all? No? Okay, good. Okay, so we've got our bait, so we're going to use pilchards and squid. Mullet works okay. It works better beyond 100 metres off the Gold Coast. Don't ask me why. Go north, Queensland, go up to say, I don't know, Bunker Group off 1770, mullet's great. But down here, it doesn't work for some reason very good. Don't know why.
Can you use Mac tuna strip?
Yeah, Mac tuna's not too bad, and so's Taylor's really good too. Preferably better if you use it fresh, it's not too bad. If you let it freeze and then defrost it and then fillet it and use it, it's not as good as soft. And it falls off the skin quite easy. So you need to do some prior homework. So what you do is you fillet it at home the day after you've defrosted it, or the day that you defrost it, and then you pat salt onto the flesh, and on the other side if you want, but more the flesh side, and then you hang it up somewhere to drip dry that the wife won't complain to you. So let it drip. Yeah, clothesline's very good. And it firms it right up. And then you cut the fillet, so if the fillet's like this shape, you cut it across like so. And the last part, the tail part, I just leave it as one big triangle piece. So you get around about probably 6 to 8 pieces off a standard bonito, say, or a Mac tuna. If it's a big Mac tuna, and you get a big Mac tuna and you think, what do I do with it? Well, some people do eat it, and we have tried. It's not too bad if you do it right. But well, people say you're crazy, but it's a really good crab pot bait for the skeleton. But the fillet, say you got a Mac tuna, it's 8 kilo or 7 kilo, a big one. You need to cut the fillet about only 20 mil thick at the most. 15 mil is even better. So you've got like still 30 mil of flesh on the body. Good crab pot bait though. So get that one big fillet, that's only about this thin all the way through, and then do the same thing, put salt on it, cut it in strips if you want, like fillet size. Cut it on the angle like so, last bit hang up, and salt all the flesh, and then hang it up in pieces. And it becomes heaps better, it's so good. And pillies of salt's okay too, so I fished a pro fisherman for a while, and he bottom fished all the time, and we used his deck winches back in the day. And all his pilchards were in a brine in a nally bin. So before he went out, 2 or 3 days before he went out, he'd just have them sitting in this salt brine. It was so salty, and he'd add a bit of glow bait and a bit of other stuff to it. And the pilchards, you pull them up, they stunk, but they were very firm. And that's what we use for bait. The fish love it. Okay. So again, pilchards out the block, same deal again. If you salt them prior to your fishing, the heat's better. But most of us don't do that. We just defrost them and throw them on the hooks. And quite often they're soft, so they need to be firmed up. Squid's good. Squid's naturally, I'm saying salty. Squid tastes good, but it's got something. It's just its texture. It's firm. It's good. Yeah, so the cock in the sock, they say. So yeah, it works okay. Just use the, again, cut the tail off, and just use the 2/3 of the pilchard. And you need a fairly decent. It's going to be arrow squid as well, not the big calamari squid. Arrow squid's really good because it's quite small and cylindrical, and it fits in there perfect. Yeah, and just make sure the last hook goes through the eye and out through the squid, the top hook. Yeah. Okay, so now we've got our bait, we've got our rods and reels, worked out our sinker size, and we're out now fishing. So I use this scenario all the time, but how many people here only have one sound on one screen? Okay, and 2 screens? The world's getting better. Okay, so most single screens you can split into 3, okay, these days. So you got your top to bottom, 0 to 80 metres. They're out on the 36s here. I've got the window looking between 50 and 70 metres, so 20 metre window on the zoomed on the bottom. And that's now looking, that's between 50 and 70. So now looking at 50, 60, 70. So that's that window there blowing up. And this is my GPS over this side, okay? So previously when I've been out there, I've marked that pinnacle, which is here. I've marked that pinnacle, which is here. The bottom end of it, there's fish in there. I've marked that as well. Oh, there, sorry. And then there might have been another pinnacle later, which I've marked down here somewhere. So, as I say to you all the time, each time I'm out fishing, I try and change, or sometimes I change it to suit the species. If I'm chasing pearlies, there'll be different colour icons, or little icons. So it might be a triangle, and there might be red, or whatever it might be, and then the next one might be a yellow cross or something like that. So I know that my snapper was on the red one, my pearlies is on the white one, or whatever it may be, okay? So I change it all the time. And my tracks, I try and change. I don't change it every time I go out, but in the season I'll change it. So I'll change it to a later season. So I know maybe the blue was during snapper pearly time, but I might have been out in January when I was trolling for dolphin fish and wanted to have a drop, and I've used the pink one in that time of the year. So then I sort of can work out, okay, blue ones, where's my blue ones? That's the run for my snapper every time I go out, that spot, that spot, that spot. You probably see that, Kirk, on the GPS in the day. But that's how it is. And on that day, that's north up here, right? Always north. I have north up. How many people here put north up? If you don't, you drive helicopters, I guess. But I don't like the other way. Go around in circles. Very hard to work at night time, that one. But that particular day is north, so I've drifted on a northwest to southeast trajectory. So it might have been blown a bit northwest that day, or whatever it might have been. So my drift's consistently in that angle. So I always do a blind drift down opposite, like parallel with my reef. I never go on the reef for the first drift because I believe the sounder may turn them off or invite the sharks, whatever it may be. So I'll just go away a bit, maybe 300 metres away or 400 metres away from my spot, and just do a drift while we get the baits all cut up and get everything ready. Put the sinkers on, might be 5 minutes or 3 minutes. Worked out my distance, how far I've drifted, and what angle I've drifted on, and then I may, if it's a fairly new spot, I may go to the bottom of the reef and just drive up over it and try and see where the fish are stacked on that particular day before I do my first drift back down. If I'm confident in the spot and I give it that first crack, I won't even go do that. I'll go straight up to the top here and I'll just drift down on that same angle that I was doing on my trajectory blind drift and go down over it. Does that make sense? The more, after, especially a pearl perch, snapper aren't too bad, but pearlies, after like 2 drifts or 3 drifts, if you drop a couple, they just go off the bite. Snapper, they don't care. They never go off the bite. Sorry.
Can you tell us what frequency you're using?
Yeah.
In that 60 and beyond? Yeah,
so if you've got the older style or got chirp, 50 kilohertz is really, really good over around 100 metres plus. Yeah, it just seems to dial in. It's a different beam, narrow beam, more power emphasised in one area. If you use 200, it's quite spread. I think it's 183 these days, isn't it? I think.
Mine's 200.
200, yeah. Yeah, so I used to sell a lot of sounds back in the day, and we were always taught 200 is a wide beam and 50 kilohertz is narrow beam. Now they say 50 kilohertz is a wide beam and 200 is narrow. So, is anyone here can clear me up on that one? Because it's the complete opposite to what it used to be.
Depends what you're going to get, a high wide or a low wide and stuff.
Yeah, okay.
It's all about the transducer angle.
Yes.
You've got, so
Right.
yeah, that makes a difference. So you can have
Yeah.
you can have a 200 wide or a 200 narrow.
Right, okay, that makes sense then. Okay. Okay, my dad was just 200 was wide, 50 was narrow.
Frequency penetrates the water, deeper water.
Correct, which is normally 50 kilohertz, that's correct. And these days you can get chirp, which you can dial into just about any one. You can go from 0 to 200, you know.
What do you normally run out here, Doug?
I normally run, if I'm fishing like just under 100 metres, 200 if I can. Only because I can see more area around me. So, and I can sort of work out where I am, where 50 kilohertz in deep water, if the boat goes a bit like that or whatever it may be, you may miss the spot, okay? On the 24 fathoms and 18 fathoms, we have really good pinnacles, some of the best pinnacles in our whole area off the coast here. Bigger than out on the 50 fathom reef, right? Except for one ledge. And 200 out here just works really good in close. When I get out in the deeper water, you've got to have more of these little things on your screen so you can nail it exactly because the beam's narrower, you got more power in it. I'm talking like 120 metres, say, and you need to dial it in better because you'll miss it otherwise. They're not very big pinnacles, they're not very wide, and a lot of times the strips are wide as this room here, you know. So you got to be right on it. It takes, like, well, I'll spend as much time sounding around, and my kids hate it, and whoever else comes out in the boat, but we get fish because when we get it right, we get fish. Guys that go up and spend a lot more time just dropping, still catch fish, but I think you can miss a lot of fish. So you're better putting the time into understanding the reef around you, how it's shaped and which way it goes, and where the wire weed is on it, and where the rubble is on it, and where the fish are stacked on it, rather than just go straight to the spot and drop your line. So, and it means chewing out 2 hours of your 4-hour fishing trip. Do it, I reckon. Do it, and you understand it much better for your next trip. The next time you can go and spend less time doing that, and more time fishing the right spot. That's a real good secret.
So you're adjusting your standard settings kind of where you're fishing?
Correct. Yeah, if I'm in deeper water, I'll narrow it down and get more power into it.
I've never don't notice it.
Yeah, so you'll see most of the sounders I think is 283. I think 200 kilohertz is the wide beam and 83 is narrow. Not saying they're not narrow wide, but that's generally a 1 kilohertz transducer, I think. So the standard 600 watt or 400 watt transducers, wide and narrow for deep, wide for shallow. Yep. Yeah, and you can switch it. You just go to settings and go to transducer type, I think it is, or setting, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
There's generally only two changes.
Yeah.
But if you've got a chirp sound, you can dial in anywhere. Yeah, yeah, with the right transducer. Yep. Okay, so another thing too, when you get to that spot and you are going to sound around, don't go too fast. Like sometimes we'll throw a lure out, especially in summer, and just sound around for half an hour, whatever, looking for new reef, whatever it might be. And we did that the other day, but only called striped tuna. But it is May. If you go sort of like more than 6 knots, which is still okay for trolling, even 3 knots is okay for trolling. The slower you can go, the more detail you get and the more you understand the reef as well. So if you go over it fast, unless you've got a really good sounder and transducer's mounted perfect, and you can get a crystal clear picture, which I think works a lot on Simrads, I've seen that, it's really hard to sort of think, was that fuzz back there, or was that wireweed, what was it? I just drove over, it looked like something, but it's not good enough to stop. But if you're doing 2 knots and going over that same spot, I bet you're going to pull back and say, let's drop here, because it's a whole different scenario in what it looks like on the sounder. So slow down, look around the area, really good. So back over to the spot here. Okay, so I've done the drift over there. Another time I've gone out, there's no wind, the drift's just straight southerly, okay? But you can see, because there's There might have been a little bit of easterly wind on this one here, so I've gone down, but I've sort of blown not on the trajectory I want to go. So I've pulled myself back over because everyone's saying my line's out the back, or it may be. And every time I reverse it, that's what I'm saying about before, it pulls you off your line. So we drifted again, and then the boys said reverse back, so I've reversed back. And we've nailed that spot there, but we've missed that spot there. And then gone down, we've got another spot down the bottom here. So sometimes if you've got more spots on your GPS, the more you can understand what the reef looks like and what sort of drift you can do on it. So what was always that drift, now you realise they can do a drift over there or a drift over there, and you get to know the reef better. That's how you catch more fish. Zooming in, so a lot of time you get little pictures, it's very fuzzy, hard to see, little dots up there, don't know what they are. But when you zoom in, you can see a lot better what they are. So please use your zoom. So if I'm fishing in under 50 metres, I generally have a 10 or maybe a bit more, but 10 metre window. So you can go to manual and push in upper and lower limits on most sounders. Or if you push in, I think most of them go up to 8 times, I think it is. So if you're on 50 metres and 8, you're looking at just 6 or 8 metres on the bottom. But 4 is generally enough, so you're looking at 12 metres in that section. Does that make sense? Zoom in 1/4. And look to see what you got. And as you're going over it, as I said, mark it. So mark it. So that there, I couldn't see fish there on that side. There's a tiny little red dot there. But when I've zoomed it in, I can see there's fish stacked in that little ledge there on the edge, the ledge. They're probably, if I was out deep water, they're probably kings or something like that. Bigger fish. But the snapper are generally going to be a little bit on the bottom here, but more stacked up higher. So most of the snappers, the biggest snapper are around about, if say you're in 40 metres of water, they're in the bottom quarter of the water column. So if you're in 40 metres, in the bottom 10 metres, but generally at the top of it, of that 10 metre section. 60 metres, I'll be in 15 metres off the bottom, and 100 metres, I might be 20 metres off the bottom. That seems to be the home. But when you're float lining, that's a different story, because when you're using these big snapper leads like this, it's quite quick to go straight past those guys. And a lot of them will come down the bottom and then bite, but you'll get a lot more fish if you're float lining in closer if you're using small sinkers. We'll talk about that a bit later. So everyone understand that scenario now? It's all good?
With those marks that you want to hit, to put my electric on, and I can get that electric to drive from that mark to that mark to that mark to that mark.
You can.
To that mark,
Yeah.
to that mark.
Very slowly. Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do it in my little boat. So yeah, if you can get the right angle at the right speed, and your line's still coming with you as you're going along, perfect scenario. But you need preferably no wind that day. Yeah, and just cruise along very slowly. Even if there's no current, you can make the current by just moving a bit faster. That's the beauty of electric. Because a lot of days when you get no current, your line's straight down, and it's a glass out, you get no bites. Has anyone ever found that before? It's always those days you think, oh, the weather's so good, and you get there and you're so excited. You drop down, there's fish on the sounder, but there ain't nothing happening. But if you've got electric motor that is, and you just put the speed really slow, like on 1 or 2, and just it pulls the lines along, and you get a lot more bites.
And you create your own current.
Create your own current, that's correct. Yeah, the fish are like, well, the bait's moving or whatever. It works. So try that. Any other questions at all? Okay, so any questions on the bottom fishing side at all? I just want to show you a couple more things. So in your kit, you've got this rig here, which is one of my favourite rigs because it's easy, I don't have to make it. Let's open it up. So there's 2 lots of 2 hooks. There's circle hooks. Sorry, guys. Actually, I think I got one over here. I got one out. So it looks like this sort of thing. So you can join if you're fishing at 100 metres, you want to join 2 together. Nothing's stopping you from joining 2 together. All you do is where the bottom is where the sinker goes on, you cut it there and tie the other one that you cut onto the top of the swivel, and then you've got to join the middle, and you've got 2 more hooks up here and swivel on top, and you tie that to your line. So, but again, it's got the dress stuff on it, and fish just love it. I don't know, we weren't doing this 30 years ago, but it's very good. So, there's circle hooks. They work really well. Give it a crack. You don't need much bait on there. A little piece of squid, piece of flesh bait, or just a pilly through the eye with a bit of squid on it works well. Okay. There are 1,000 other types. Black Magic do them. Instinct does them. There's a lot of different brands on the market. They're all dressed hooks, and they all work extremely well. And just the action of the boat going up and down, a bit like nearly like a canis jig, the fish just jump on them. Okay, even I think we got no bait on there. You feel them picking at it or hitting it. So give them a crack. As I said before, circle hooks versus J hooks, that's up to you guys. Gang hooks on the top of your rig. Do you go swivels or no swivels? Look, you don't need swivels. Just straight type gang hooks are fine. But that's up to you. And 2-hook rigs are really good as well. Just 2 hooks. And chop the pilly sort of in 2/3. Or a strip of the squid. So how do you use the squid on a gang hook? You want the head part to be at the bottom. You can put the last hook, which is the bottom hook, which is the start hook actually, through the head. So one hook goes through the head, and the other 2 are in the body. But the squid's got to be the right size to do that. So you're better off sacrificing the head and have it really loose at the bottom and work your gang hook along the body of the squid. Does that make sense? Rather than hook the head up. It works better. So they'll bite the head off generally first, and then come back and have another crack. Yeah.
You want the head at the top of the hook?
Head at the bottom hook. The top hook that's joined to the line is the top of the squid. So basically that's the squid there, and that's his head up here, sort of thing. And his flaps are on here. And he's joined here. I wouldn't put, unless I was using a single hook, I may put it through the head. But if you're using 3 hooks like this here, it's 1 hook, 2 hooks, and that last hook will be up here somewhere. Yeah. If you ever, just coincidentally, if you ever use live squid and you only need 1 hook in a live squid. So if you have the luxury of finding some squid that aren't too big and you can keep them alive, they keep alive very well actually. That pelmet area, which is right at the top of the squid, is the hardest part of the squid, that part there. Okay? And you have 1 little circle hook, you don't need too big, just go right through, and that's all you use, 1 hook. And the hookup rate's like 100%. Yeah, especially for like marlin and sailfish and stuff like that. But also for jewies and that as well. Okay? Or snapper, whatever. But otherwise, 3 hooks and leave that piece, sacrifice the head. Sometimes if it's a bad fish or maybe an annoying fish, it'll eat the head and it won't come back. And you're stuck at the body, you cut it up for later. But sometimes that does happen too.
Snell rigs work all right?
Snell hooks are really good as well. I'm going to go right to that now actually. So really good. So no other questions on the bottom fishing? We're going to go to live bait now before Stu gets here. He's going to be here in about 10 minutes. So has anyone here ever live baited for snapper? It works so well. They love it. They love yakkers, slimies, whatever you can get. I use a pattern Oster. Regan, I like to do it. I use, go back to what I said. In close, I use a ball sinker like I do fishing with live bait. So I use a 8-ball or whatever, straight onto 2 snelled hooks. So this is just a little rig, but so that'll be a sinker, but no matter what it is, if you've got a bit of current or wind or your live bait doesn't want to go down the bottom, wants to stay around the back of the boat, you need to put a bigger sinker on. Doesn't need to be a glow sinker, but glow sinkers definitely work, I believe. Fluoro, pink, green, blue, doesn't matter. So I set it straight on top of that, straight on top of that hook. It's not on his head, it's away from his head. His head's down here further. So that's where I like to put it, okay? And then that's sitting in the live bait, of course. So I use that type of rig when I'm fishing in the sort of up to 50 metres deep on a live bait. Then once I get out to 36s, I switch and I'll go to a paternoster type rig. something like this fella here. So I've got a sinker on the bottom. So I'm using an 8-ounce or a 12-ounce sinker. I always put another hook on. It's a mental thing, but I think the bait on there is going to attract fish to the scenario. But my live is swimming around up top here on this rig here, sorry, on that rig there. So I have a little bit of freedom for him to swim around. It doesn't get tangled up. It doesn't twist the line as well, unless the current's really bad and the wind's really bad. It may do it. And I'm using like 2 5-0s, 6-0s or 7-0s on, say, Yakka. But then when I'm out in the 50 fathom reef, I'm doing similar scenario, but I just up the ante a bit. Because if you've ever got live bait out in the 50 fathoms, they're big slimies like this big. They're huge. So you need to go a bigger rig. So like 7-0s or 8-0s. These are 8-0s. I like 8-0s. And it's obviously longer. Okay?
How do you hook the live bait on there?
So I just always hook up the bottom hook first, but you got to go, everyone has a different technique. So my dad, when he used to do it back in the day, just straight through, just past the dorsal fin, straight through the whole body. I don't like to do that now. I've learned, I think my hook rate's better. If I go, I'll draw it in a minute, but I go as far as nearly his spine, so after his dorsal fin, I'll go through, nearly touch his spine, but not quite. Push it down as far as I can, then pop it back out. So it's actually sitting like half exposed, I guess, like that, out the side of him. Does that make sense? Yep. Like so. And any fish that's coming from behind, it's straight in. Like a lot of hooks exposed. When you got it through from one side to the other, there's not much exposed hook, and the hook rate's nowhere near as good. The top hook, this is the painful one, the top hook. So what's the best way to hold it? Because you would know, using a live bait, they wiggle a lot and that always falls out. And when you pull it up to check it, only that hook's attached. So if you go through both, that's the best way to hold it, but he dies because he can't open his mouth up very well. And if you go through the nose from one side to the other, that'll work if you're fishing shallow water and there's not much current or wind. It doesn't fall out all that easy. But if you've got any wind or current, or it's a bigger bait and it's very active, it always falls out. So in there and out there's the best. Yeah, so in up through the top of his mouth and out. And so that's sitting like that. That one there's sitting out the side of him. Don't have that too tight because you could bend the fish, if that makes sense. It'll twist in the current. So have plenty of generous line on there, so don't make them too short. It's snell, and it works really well. No one's asked how do you make that part there. Oops. Yeah, that's right. So you cut the loop. Which end do you cut? Does one pull out, another not pull out? Up. Circle hooks are bad. Just got me. So I always cut the bottom one. And why do I cut the bottom one? Because the top one hasn't been cut. So it's still, even through all that knot, it's still part of that. Does that make sense? So if I was to lose a fish on the bottom of my sinker, I'm only going to lose that part. I've still got my fish. Okay? But I've done the test over and over. I cut the bottom one too. I cut the top one, sorry, as well. And I still don't lose fish. But the secret is if you don't leave at least a 5 to 10 mil tag out, it will pull through, if you especially on the bottom, and you'll lose the whole lot. So you must, when you cut it, leave about a 10 mil tag. So when you see a bait jig, you see they got little tags sticking out of every joint because they just cut the loop. Does that make sense? So if you've got that tag there, it's the same as having a loop there, right? Same pulling on it, but when you cut it too short and it does sort of go on a bit of an angle, whatever it may be, it will pop it out and then it just falls away. But if you've got a tag there, it's the same as that sitting there. It doesn't do any different. It still works the same. Yeah. So has anyone ever done that and it's fallen apart? If you have, it's probably because you cut it too close. You could crimp it as well. But when you're out there, you haven't got time to do that most times. I don't. So that'll make sense. So guys, just try it. They snap it, they smash it. You get other bycatch, which is good, like Kings and Amberjacks and stuff like that too. Jewies. Yeah, on the bottom.
Just sitting on the bottom.
Yep, on the bottom, but your line's a bit like before. It's sort of like semi-taut, if that makes sense. The same principle. but because this is so loose, he's just swimming around. So, yeah, so that's a good call. Always on the bottom. Yeah, on the bottom. Yeah.
Can you just draw on how you're going to put that line?
Yeah, I will, 100%.
Do you have a multi-strand that live?
Wire?
Yeah, multi-strand.
Look, you could use it for, or use it obviously for, or use single strand, but it's 7 strands right too. 49 strands, but you can do you can do that same snell knot on wire for wahoo and mackerel. Yeah, but not for snapper. Yeah.
Last week I was out.
Oh, you're getting bitten off, right? Yeah, sorry, you're getting bitten off, yeah. So, sorry folks, just change the subject for a sec.
The bottom hook was gone.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, it was just cut through and instantaneous.
It's quick. It's very quick. They're still out there too, by the way.
That was like 5 or 6 hits in a row.
I'll show you the rig we go downstairs. Is that all right? There's a rig we got down on the wall there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which have you got one of those yet? The lipo rigs? No, they're really good.
Shopping trip this afternoon.
Yeah, they're good. So how are we going to do this?
Is that detrimental to snapper?
It is. It is. So the Jones are saying it's get bitten off a lot because there's still Spanish mackerel up there, right? And it's just part of the parcel at the moment. So what can you do about it? If you switch to wire, and you'll catch the mackerel 100%, but you probably won't get near the snapper bites. I've caught snapper on wire, but not intentionally, and very rarely. Yeah.
My bait feed is running out.
Yep.
On that rig.
Yep.
Is my thinking with
Yep.
wire there.
Yep.
But my overhead is in my hand fishing
Yes.
with that rig.
Yeah. Yep. Yes.
Yeah,
Bottom
so
rig. Yep.
I've got a lot more reliability with
yeah,
my hand. than
Correct. Correct. Yeah. But I'd probably put wire on it this time for the next 3 weeks, maybe.
Because of the
Yeah.
because of
The mackerel.
mackerel.
Correct. Yep. So everyone's got that. It's all good. I'll get rid of that one. I'll just show you how to do this. Livey. I'll do 2 different pictures of it. One looking down on top, and one from side on, sort of thing. Lost my black one. Okay, so if this is the fish looking down on top of him, probably a bit more around the front. And that's his eyes are here, and his dorsal's probably around here somewhere, and his other ones around here. So what I do with the hook, the other thing too, when you're putting on a live bait, they're very slippery, very live, and they keep falling out of the way. They spike in the hands, they're painful. I haven't got one here, but we've got them downstairs. But get yourself a little towel that sits on your belt or on your pants, whatever. It's a little towel, we've got them there like $8 or something. And you sit the live bait in that, and it doesn't move. It stays in there, doesn't slide off, and it's a game changer. But if I was, doesn't matter which side I put on. So the dorsal fin's here, sort of thing. What I'll do, I'll put it in around about here somewhere. I'll show you how far up to put it in a moment. And the hook's going to go in about here, and it's going to go internally like that, and then it'll stick out like so, if that makes sense. And that part will be sticking out as well. Then the line then just sits, it definitely sits on top, wherever it may be. And then this hook here is going in here and out through that way. If you can go this way if you want, but it falls off. It's too soft and too. Every fish has like a very soft part of that area, and it's a great spot to put a hook, but it doesn't work very good. It falls out. So looking at it side on, probably an easy way to see it. Sorry for the guys over there. So my hook's sort of sitting about here. It's not a very good colour. About here. Oh, it's worse. Sorry, guys. About here. And internally, it's in here somewhere, but not quite to his backbone, and then this part here is sticking out.
Circle hooks?
No, J hooks. Can't be circle. You can use a circle on the front here if you want to, but I don't like to use it at the front. I find it's really weird. When we fish on marlin baits, we use circle hook, single circle hook, but it's a little bit different setup. But with live baits like yakkers or slimies, whatever, J hooks tend to work much better. So the line's sort of loose here, and then that hook there is sticking out like that sort of thing. And the line's joined up here. Does that make sense? But that's sort of like, it looks like it's down there, but it's actually it's sitting out perfectly horizontal on 90 degrees with the fish. Has anyone tried it this way before at all? Yeah, it works very good, yeah. So give that a crack, guys. So you go. And as I said earlier, it's the same when you're fishing in close, obviously using the ball sink or whatever. But when you're fishing out wide, it's the same scenario. You got to back up. You got to give it a little bit of slack, not too much slack, and just work with it. But when you get a lively on, it's just a boom boom bang. That's how it works. So bang, it's on. Okay. They're very aggressive. We fished one time on the 24 fathoms with liveys using the same scenario as the pink sinker here somewhere, if it's gone, with the sinker straight onto the hooks. And I think I might have told the story once before, but we couldn't get a fish up. We thought that'd be cobia. And we're using any live bait we catch. And the days you can't catch live bait is the days you get lots of fish. That's a guarantee too. So no slimies, no yakkers. We'll catch things like, we caught a couple of yakkers, but we'll catch a goatfish. Got a goatfish but this big, and it caught me like 10 kilo snapper, that one goatfish. Whatever you put down live, if there's nothing else around, they'll eat it. Okay, but it took us from, I think, 30-pound leader, 50, 80 to 100-pound leader before we finally got a fish up. We realised they were just monster snapper. They were like nearly a metre or somewhere over a metre, like 13-kilo ones, so huge. And that was on one of your marks there, whichever one fishes on the 18th, straight at the front. It's got to be July though. Every year they're there. Every year. It's up to you guys to catch them. I'll tell you the mark a bit later. But so if you're getting done, you need to have a bit of artillery on the boat. So it doesn't necessarily mean bigger hooks or anything, that just means heavier leader or heavier line. We actually went from that day from, I think they were like Stratic 4000s, I think we were using at the start. We were just float lining. And then we put a livey out. Had got 2 yakkers, I think. And then we switched to, and at the end we used like Trinidads and Spheros, which is like a Saragossa these days. Like 20,000 size with 80 pound. And we finally catch these big snapper. They school up just like squire do when they're on out here. Best spots to fish. How many guys have fished up sort of half out in Australia in about 50 metres, 54 metres? Yeah, that's the home of the big snapper. Very hard to find the spots, but that is the best area. It's a long run though. It's about 58 k's from here, I think, roughly speaking. It's a bit of a run. But it's only shallow water, 52 metres deep, 54, 48. Depends which area, which one you're fishing on. Okay, so we've done the snapper leads. Everyone, any questions on the live baits at all? Oh, I want to tell you about catching live bait. Sorry.
Now with the live bait again,
yes.
because I'm losing that bottom hook.
Yes.
The only thing stronger I had was putting on a 60-pound wire trace.
Good call. Yeah, but you only had long traces probably.
Yeah, that's all I had.
Yeah.
On the boat.
Yep.
But the bites instantaneously stopped.
Yep.
Now it might have been the end of the run.
Yeah.
Or would that have been detrimental to?
Yeah. So again, we're trying to use we use single strand wire 'cause it's so thin, so that they're still pedantic about thickness of wire too. Yeah. So if it's a bit had big snaps on it or swivels, they don't want to know about.
It was plenty strong.
Yeah, pretty strong. Not the right application though. No. Okay, I just want to quickly tell you about, before Stewie gets here, which will be in a minute. He's coming out, you Stewie, hopefully. I want to tell you about live bait. So, catching live bait is an art. I know you guys sometimes must go out and not get liveys and think, what am I doing wrong? There's an art to it. And the art to it is understanding that yakkers bite better on the way down through the school than actually jigging your line back up through the school. Has anyone nailed that yet and got it right on the way down? If you have, you know what I mean. So you'll catch, I don't know, 3 or 4 times more if you get them on the way down through the school than rather than coming back up through the school. Okay? And how do you do that? You just got to, if you're using a spin reel, you just let it out through your fingers. So as it's going down and the line's pulling off, I'm like grabbing it, letting it go, grabbing it, letting it go, grabbing it, letting it go. But only because I'm using coloured line, I know I'm in 40 metres deep. I know the fish the live bait's stacked between about 25 and 30 metres. So once I've got 2 colours out, I'll start before it actually gets to the area and grab, stop, grab, stop, grab, stop, grab, stop as it's going down. And this goes all loose and it's filled up. Okay. Toppers who use slimies, you've got to be really quick on slimies because they get in a big knot. So with the slimies, they'll generally be a lot more aggressive. So it'll pull out from your hands quite quick. Tail does the same thing too, but slimies are a different kettle of fish. So you need to wind real quick on slimies to get up the slack and stop them from tangling up. Trag Jew are like a big slimy, if that makes sense. Anyone had a session on Trag Jew at all where they've got all curled up in the line and everything? They do the same thing, they swim up. So all bait fish swims up, especially slimies, and trag do the same. So you zip it out through your fingers. If you're using an overhead, all you simply do is you stop, 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 stop. About that sort of timing as well, by the way, as it's going down through the bait school. And let's go all loose and they're on there straight away. If you drop down the bottom and then sort of jerk the slack, you might get a few that down the bottom. But once you get, and the bait fish is up a bit high, so you bring up a little bit and try and jerk through the bait school, it's really hard to get them that way. You get them, but you won't get as many as going slowly through that bait school. Okay, that's one thing. Next thing is understanding your bait jigs. So one thing I did recently, I tried, this is the cheapest one we sell, they're a Japanese company. I tried these little red ones. They're like 3 for like $6 something your price, so like $2 something each. Man, like 6 a string. So good. I don't know if it's because there's something different they haven't seen before. I'll pass it around. She does get 30% off that price, but they just work so well. So you've got to sometimes change your bait jig around. So if you've got your favourite that you work all the time, there are days when that won't work. So have something different. Okay. And then you can get jigs that are snapper jigs, if that makes sense. So has anyone ever caught like a 2 kilo snapper on a jig yet? No? You will if you've got the right hooks. Generally they hook up and they snap your line. But you get jigs that have got like 30 and 40 pound or 50 pound leader, 30 pound branch. Hooks are a lot sharper. They're not necessarily that dear. And you just fish it like you would a bait jig. And you'll catch 2 like legal squire at a time, or 3. You can put a little bit of squid on if you want. They work really well. I'll pass these around as well. These are all Japanese, so they're up there in price. And then you can get really flash ones that, these have got 60 and 40 pound on it. There's 6 hooks. Oh, sorry, 5 hooks. I don't know if I tried that one, but there's something different. And then on the bottom of your bait jig, when I was in Japan recently, I saw these at a shop. And I said to the guy, they're in the bait jig section. And I said to the guy, why do you use such flash sinkers? And my wife's Japanese, she's talking to him. And he says, because the flash attracts the bait to your jig, which is common sense, right? So I gave these a crack with those red ones. I don't know if it was the jig or this thing that made it work so good. It was one of the two, but it was a game changer.
What about those little burley cages?
Yeah, burley cages are really good too. So burley cages are really good when you are at anchor. So otherwise it goes out and the fish stay with it and it doesn't come with you. But if you're at anchor, they're really good, Pete. Yeah. So put a burley cage at the top of your jig and put in some mulched up pilchards or whatever it may be. They also use sinkers like this type of thing as well on their jigs. Thanks, mate. But you can get Lumos, little bottom dropper sinkers. But the main thing for you guys I want you to learn is to drop your sinker, your jig, stop it on the way through the bait school. Please try that. Okay? That's the main thing for that. Okay, Stu, where are you?
There's different changes to the hook sizes of those.
No, so, okay, people say that one there should have like about a 4/0 hook on it, right? But it's only about a 1/0 or 2/0. If you use Lacanis jigs, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Everything's sort of mouth hooked, and Lacanis jigs have little tiny hooks, and you catch a like 8 kilo snapper, you know. So it's the way that they're not used like a bait where you got to try and get it down the throat and hook them. It's loose and they just nail it, and they're generally lip hooked. Yeah, so you rarely get a bait jig fish caught right down the throat. You do sometimes, but it's generally in the mouth. Yeah.
Bonito last week.
Did you? Yeah. Yeah, they're good. Yeah, good bait. And good eating too. Okay, I'm going to start off. Yeah, mate. No, that's all right.
Whereabouts you get your live bait? Where you going?
Yeah. Okay. It's a good question, matey. So a lot of people, when I go out the Seaway in the morning, and I look, and I go out on the crack of daylight, right, and I look to that 10 fathoms off the sandpump jetty, which is about whatever it is, 18 metres deep or whatever it is, and I'll see 30 boats there, and they're missing the prime time of the bite. And I can bet my knackers, if you go out to wherever you're going to go fishing, there's live bait there. You don't need to stop. Get it where you're going to. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. So everyone's waiting, trying to get bait, whatever it is. Meantime, those that know what they're doing are catching fish on the crack of daylight when they should be there, you know. And you can't get bait before daylight. It's very difficult unless you spice up your hooks or something, you know. So unless you've got a big light like those, you know, you track the bait to your thing, but you need a big light at the back of the boat and it needs to go down deep into the water. So my suggestion is always with live bait to try and find it around where you're going to be fishing at. And don't worry about it. For the first half an hour, you should be bait fishing. Till the sun comes up, and the sun's up and it's above the horizon and live bait starts to show up on the sounder, then have a crack at getting live bait. And as soon as you get one, drop it straight back down, straight away. Before you even get the next bait jig down, get one down. And you get you get everything. Mull away, whatever. Yeah. You get liveys at the 50 fathoms, you get it at 36s, you get them everywhere. So guys, if it could, again, take one thing away tonight, don't go to the bait reef and get bait before you go out fishing. You'll get it where you're going to most times. Sometimes you won't, don't get me wrong, but I'd say 90% of the time you can get it where you're going to. No matter where that is, there's bait everywhere. Stewie, how you going, mate? Good timing. Hey Stewie, would you say, what would you do on the crack of dawn? Go to the bait reef off the jetty and get bait, or would you go fish snapper baits then get live bait after when the sun's
Yeah, I'd do the snapper thing first.
So, yeah.
Bait afterwards. Bait's always hard to get when the sun's not up.
Thanks, Masako.
So you're kind of wasting your good bite time trying to get bait, I think.
Which is it's only about normally half an hour. You got that right on the crack of daylight bite, and the bigger fish are always hunting, and the bite is a lot more aggressive. And 90% of people are getting live bait in on the close reef, mucking around. Yeah. So please don't be one of those boats. Okay, Stu, we're up to the float lining part. Yours is my favourite part. So, Stu, I say that there's nothing better than using a little light rod and reel and just watching the line flick off at 1,000 miles an hour, and then hooking that bail across. Then you're on, you know. I love bottom fishing. Don't get me wrong, but that's next level doing that. It's a great thing. So most of you have probably done it. I dare say. The hardest part is turning a fish on light line to get it off the bottom because they'll brick you, as I was saying earlier. So you might have to up the ante on the size of your line. But we always fish fairly light, don't we, Stu? I fish for flathead rods. So
yeah, flatty gear,
yeah. And you get most fish up to about probably 7 kilo or 8 kilo if you're 90% lucky. Stu is often lucky. But the rods we're using, like that one I had before, Stewie there, that Nasty combo, mate, yeah. So we're using like the heavier flathead rods. So the flathead rod, we do use light ones too, but the rods we're using like our bigger, like stick bait type, not stick baits, but surface lures on shallow water, which is a fairly bit heavier rod, which is like a 5,000 or a 4,000 size reel, and it's sort of 10 to 17 or 12 to 25 pound, whatever it may be, 20 pound. And the braid we're using is 30 pound generally.
Yep.
So that's the go. 20 pounds as light as you want to go, but 30 is good. And I'll pass this around again, but braids is getting ridiculously thin. Pass that around, you see that's 30 pounds. You can fish for whiting with it, okay? And you can use a lot smaller sinker in the water column. And because most of the fish are going to be around about that sort of 38 to 50 centimetre size, which are nice eating size. And they're really good fun on light tackle. So that's the first thing. Just to clear up to people say, well, thin line, breaks easy, whatever. It does, but it breaks generally about what they say it is in poundage. But if you get not so much a cheaper line, but a thicker line, okay, that says it's 20 pound, it's probably as strong as the 30 in the thin line. Does that make sense? So it's very similar, but one's tested at its maximum break and strain, and then it's put on the spool, and the other one's just like, we know it's going to be at least 20 pound or 30 pound, but it's not listed as 40 pound, so to speak. So it's a little bit tricky. Every brand is different. Some boxes we get now even gives the two different sizes. To confuse matters worse. So they'll say Japan rating 40 pound, US rating 25 pound, like that. It's just the way they do it. Okay, so that's our rig.
On 18s or 24s, what's the leader?
30 pound fluorocarbon's what I like to use. What do you like to do?
I use like 16 or 20. Yeah, very
Suicidal.
light. Yeah. And longer.
He likes
I
a
use
lot.
like 5 metres.
I use about a metre or and a half.
For this stuff, yeah.
So we fish very different everything. That's why Stuart says he catches more, but he says that. Okay, so rod and reel. Any questions on rod and reel? That's the type of thing, okay? If you've got a, just grab that white one there, mate, the little slow pitch one.
Yep.
Okay. So I use, one of my 2 rods is this style rod. So I brought this up tonight to show you. So if you do at our last seminar, we did the Pearly seminar, and we talked about slow pitch jigging. So those type of rods are really good as well. They're very soft on the tip. You've got plenty of balls in the bottom here, and they're the same size reel and same size line, same everything else. But it's just the rod's a little bit different. So rather than be 7 foot and normally carbon with the power in the butt, these things are just powerhouses all the way through. They'll work fine as well, and you can do all the same. They cast a mile as well. Big secret, because so we've got our rods and reels sorted, got our leaders sorted. Next thing to do, our rig, before we get to casting it. Look, on the day, you need to fish as light as you can. So you need to, again, a little bit different to out wide where we sort of know the current's doing that, and we just drop down in close. There is no really good current app for in close. It's always out there on the southern current, okay? So it will show going north, but it might not, it doesn't really show the
It's not really accurate speed.
Not accurate, yeah.
So like 50 fathoms north, east type of thing, and further out, it's pretty accurate.
Yeah, pretty accurate.
But inside of 50 fathoms, it's kind of a guideline.
And some days it can be worse. You can be on the, you might be going to go out wide for the day, but you think, I'll just get some snapper and close at the start. And you might have a fish on the crack of daylight on the 24 fathoms or 18 fathoms, and it's howling to the south, or it could be howling to the north. And they think, oh, I'm not going to go wide today. You made it go wide, and there's like no current. He smashed it. So don't let current fool you. So if you got the chance and the weather looks good, I'd still keep going wide and give it a crack. Because we do the same, we go deep drop and we'll go to 50 fathoms, try and get some snapper or pearlies first, and the current might be raging, but we get fish. And then we decide to keep on going another 20 or 30 k's out, or north, and burn all that fuel and get up there, and it's like one knot of current, it's like no current. So it depends on the day, it really does. But sinker size, what size do you like to use to?
As small as I can. Like if I'm fishing at 18s, I might use like a 1 ball or like a 1/8 or something like that.
Yeah.
And then as I go out, I obviously get a little bit heavier. But the idea of your sinker is not to make it sink, if that makes sense. It's to compensate the drag of the line coming off the reel and things like that. So you still want to throw your pilly in and it to sink down like it's unweighted. Yeah.
So these sinkers coming around now, like we've done lots of luminous sinkers for the last 20 years, and these guys are the best, that doesn't chip off. If you put it in your hand, mate, actually see what colour it glows. That one's a blue. Blue's my favourite. I've always mentioned this, doesn't matter if I'm fishing deep water. I like to use blue, glow blue. Glow white's probably our next best seller.
Yeah.
I haven't got a glow white either downstairs. Or pink. Pink's popular. Only because the colour pink probably might be an attractant, but it's supposedly the first colour to disappear in the water column too. But
Yeah, the pink kind of glows orange-ish type of colour.
it does, yeah, that's right. Then you got glow green, which glows green. There's all different colours. So the sinkers coming now, we've done them in size. So as they come around, they're getting bigger and bigger. So the green ones that come around are probably about as big as I'd use on the 24 fathom reef or inside of 50 metres, which is that an ounce, mate? Ounce, yeah. So an ounce is generally enough.
You that's going to be running sinker, so you know that go sometimes right up through the FD or something like that. Or
Sometimes it does, and then it gets all tangled up, and that's part of the parcel. How do you stop that? You can use a float bead.
Yeah, I like
Float
a float
stopper.
stopper. Yeah, and you push
So-
it hard down on your bait or on your sinker.
It's a secret of the trade.
Yeah.
So have you ever used a float stopper? So it's like a little rubber bead. We got them downstairs. So you thread before you put your hook on, because you're using those swivel, right? Using whatever, FG, whatever, straight to your braid to leader. So on the leader, you put this, you just got a little loop, you just thread the leader through just about that far, and then you pull the silicone bead off and it goes past the line, but it stays on the line, if that makes sense, on your new line. And then you then slide that up to as far as you want the sinker to go. And it won't go beyond that. Yeah, it's really good. And it's very tiny. Exactly, exactly right, Pete. Yeah, if you garfish, you know what we're talking about. Pete knows what we're talking about.
can you use swivels?
You can use swivels, but old school, more paraphernalia on your line, more visual, and you can't have it. You've got to use a fairly short trace, right? Because what the secret is about to talk about is you've got to try and cast the distance of the depth if you want to. That's what I like to do. So if I'm 40 metres, I'm trying to cast a 40 metre cast or close to it, maybe 30. And then if you have a 2 metre trace or 3 metre or 5 metre, you can't put a swivel on, right? Because it won't go through the guides. So you can only use a shorter trace, and you can't use too long because it just doesn't work when you cast it. It gets out of whack. It doesn't work. So get rid of the swivel, because you can wind that bait right up that far from your tip and cast a whole lot out, nice and neat, with an FG or an Albright. Okay. Next thing is we've got the rig. Let's get back to the rig. Sorry, I haven't finished the rig yet. So we've got the sinker size. The next thing is the hooks. So look, everyone uses different hooks, and I've tried all the different things. I've tried single hooks. I don't like using single hooks very much. I definitely like using snelled hooks, and I definitely like using 2-gang or 3-gang hook as well. It doesn't seem to bother them too much, especially with pilchards. 2-hook rigs with Kirk was saying before about chop the tail off, definitely stops the spinning. So if you use a 2-hook rig and chop about 1/3 the pilchard off, use that for burley or whatever, and just put the head and the meaty part on 2 hooks, it works really, really good. Lots of blood coming out, lots of smell, and it sits in the column nicely on the way down. Stu was saying before about trying to keep your line in contact with your sinker. 2 reasons, as you're saying before. One is to get the distance in your cast. It helps, the sinker helps getting the bait away from the boat, and always cast it up in front the way you're going to drift to. Or if you're at anchor or spot lock of your motor, then you need to cast the direction of the current up into the current, so it comes back down to the current. As soon as it goes out, don't ever close, if you're using a spin reel, don't ever close the bar arm, leave it open. Let it just keep falling off, and sometimes it'll land on the bottom in front of the boat before it even gets to the back of the boat if you've got too big a sinker on, but that's okay. You just sort of hop it back down beside the boat. But hope you get hit on the way down. But the idea is if you've got too big a sinker on and it's fallen too quick, you just will not get you get a little peckers, but you won't get the bigger fish as much as you will with a lighter one that's just slowly waffling down as it's coming towards your boat and getting in that column. Like Sid showed earlier, those fish are a bit higher. You want to go through them nice and slowly with a cut bait. And as I said earlier, with that type of sinker, it's going straight past them. They may come down to it, but they don't necessarily do that. Where with a slow bait, I guarantee they're going to go hard and chew it fast. Yeah, so bar arms open. Normal procedure is if you've got rod holes that are flat, you just put it in there. If you've got a bait runner, like we was talking about before, you can put it into free spool and slacken it right off so it actually just runs out with the weight of the sinker slowly. And when it goes faster, obviously you pick it up, turn the handle, you're on. With an overhead, look, it's a bit risky with an overhead because you can get a big tangle if it takes off fast. And they take off fast, a big snapper hits it hard. So if you put an overhead into a rod holder and it's in free spool, and I'm talking little ones, like little overheads like, this size, so it still runs out nice and free. Again, it's like a slow pitcher rod. Body's just for float lining. It's in free spool, but if a fish hits that hard, it can tangle, okay? And then it'll generally get caught up and snap the line, and it's all over. So my suggestion is you've got to really hold an overhead in your arm. So if you've got two rods, a spin and an overhead, cast the spin one up first and let it come down to its thing naturally and lift the bar arm open. And this one here, cast up if you've got a casting bait caster, and then leave it in free spool and just slowly thumb it every now and then, just watch it. When it starts taking off really fast, obviously you've got a fish on, you click in the gear and you're on. The spin reel, when it flies off 100 miles an hour at the front, please make sure your drag's set right first before you cast it. If it's too tight and you click it across, it'll just snap. If it's too loose, you get a big tangle and it'll be mayhem. So it needs to be set right. So when you hit it, it's straight contact, you set the hook and you're on. The next part fighting it, Stu, would be as it's going down the bottom's a big one. What are you going to do, mate? You're going to tighten the drag up a little bit? Or?
No, it depends how fast it's going, but I generally just let them do their thing, you know. I mean, if they're going to do you, they're going to do you. So if you're using really light gear, that's the predicament. You can't go too hard on it because you'll just bust off. You bust off before it gets to the bottom. Will it get to the bottom? Who knows? It's like asking for next week's lotto numbers. But
because most of those fish, especially the bigger ones, we find most of the hits are about, say, in 40 metres deep, probably at about 30 metres down. So you've got that little 10-metre window to try and get them your way.
Slow it down a bit.
But I thought you just keep going, and then as Stu said, it's not meant to be. Upgrade to the next rig. Yeah.
So at what point do you start bringing it back in?
You don't. So you will, but eventually, yeah. So if this is the back of my boat here, so that's the back of my boat there, I'm fishing here, right? Once it gets on an angle like before, like I was saying earlier, you can back up a little bit and just wind a bit of slack up in the rod holder while it's going backwards. And then, and you can even go past it, back up the front of the boat a little bit and then pull it back as neutral and then just let it go. It'll generally get a hit in that period. They get bitten. If you don't get a bite in that period and look at the sound and there's nothing there, then that's maybe why you didn't get a bite. But you generally will get a bite. But if it's out the back like so, look, I have caught fish at anchor at the back. Like, it's a different scenario actually. At anchoring close, and I've got my lines out, there's a bit of current, and I'm using as low as I can. The fish are still 10 or 15 metres off the bottom, and my line's like that. It's not on the bottom, it's off the bottom. I'll get fish. But as soon as it hits the bottom of the heaviest sinker, I get peckers. So you will get fish if you find it the right size sinker to use. That's sort of in the water column at their height, if that makes sense.
I know that you could change singers, whatever.
Yeah, quick change. You can use so in Victoria, that's all they use. They use the clip with the clip on they use like a sink like that style with the little, I'll pass that around, with the little loop on the top. They just change it to the next size, bigger.
Somewhere where they
Click sinkers. Yeah, they're quite good.
Yeah, we've got click sinker where you can unscrew it and just put another one on. The line comes off and
just
put it back on.
Yeah.
Get those downstairs too. Yeah. They're not that popular, but this style is probably more popular with the running. What are those things called? The red and
I
blue
reckon
ones?
that other style's heaps more popular.
You reckon?
Yeah.
Click ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
Than that here, maybe.
Victoria though, that's more popular.
Victoria, that's a go, but yeah. Those click ones are handy because you can have your rig tied on and everything like that, and then just put your sinker on once you get out there.
And they do glow ones, or like a semi-glow one as well.
Yeah.
So we've worked out our drift again. We've cast up. We're coming up to the pinnacle, and it's just gone just past the boat. But I know the pinnacle's like about another 5 metres in front of me, about to drift onto it. I'll just then reverse back really slowly and just bring the line up. thing to remember though, you got really light sinkers, and you think your line's there, but it might be bow in the line like so, and you back over the line lots more often on light line than you will on heavy sinkers, because you can see where they are. You can't see where this is. It's not where you think it is. The next minute your rod's going, oh, I'm on. Oh no, it's too all the time. Big fish, Doug.
The other thing is sometimes it's sitting on the bottom, and because you don't feel that contact when it hits the bottom because it is so light, you keep feeding line out, you're just feeding that belly of line.
Yeah, that's right.
So then you go to wind up and you're snagged 50 metres up that way.
Yeah.
So try to, every now and then,
Keep in contact with it.
yeah, I either just hold the line or just pinch it and just kind of let it load up on the rod and try to feel your bait. So if you pull and there's nothing there, just don't let any more line out and let it catch up a bit. And then when you feel your bait, then I keep going again.
Yeah, I'll even just take up a bit of line, wind up 3 or 4 turns, and then drop it back out again, just so I know where the line is. Yeah. Okay. Any questions on that at all? Okay, getting back to the hook rig. So we use lots of paraphernalia. Oh, I do anyhow. Stu does a little bit. But whether it be just a little skirt like that, again, or the Lumo skirt like we had earlier, the squid skirt one, or whatever, just over the rig. And it definitely makes a difference. There are glow hooks that we sell lots of on a rig like so. So that's like a little rubber squid thing with the glow hooks and fluorocarbon. But I'll pass a couple of these around and get to see what I'm talking about. But you can make all these up your own yourselves. The hooks aren't that expensive to buy, and you've got the fluorocarbon there, and just make them, you know. Otherwise, they're sort of like about $11 a pop.
Bare minimum, if you don't want all the stuff hanging off of it, just try to put a glow bead in between your hook and your sinker. A, it glows, so you get a little bit more attraction. B, it's not making a noise. So a sinker bashing a hook all the time is very unnatural noise down there. So yeah, it knocks your knot around and all that stuff. So a little bit of added protection, but yeah.
If you're scared, how many people can't tie a snell knot? Like, it's hard to do to get it right. Don't be shy. Probably a few of you can't. So a couple of tricks is, one is you put a Lumo bead, which you got in your bag there, I think, over the eye of the hook, over the eye of the hook, and thread it. I'll put it on the line first, right? Sorry. Then thread it over the eye of the hook and onto your shank. So it's on the shank all the time, and then you pull the line through it and adjust the distance between the two hooks. So there's no snell. That's the snell.
Yeah, there's no knot. The bead holds the line on the hook.
Holds it in place.
Yeah.
And when you strike on it, it may move you down a little bit, but generally they'll hold it. The other way is exactly like what Pete knows, is to use that little bead, the silicon bead again. So silicon bead between the two hooks. It's enough to hold it. Okay. So you put it under the hook.
What's the little black thing in there?
It's a rattle.
That's a rattle.
Rattle.
That's a rattle. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All the tricks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you can't snell, try those 2 tricks. Okay. Any other questions on that at all? Okay. So Stu, anything to add to that, mate?
No, not really, mate.
That's all right.
Yeah.
So the next 2 months, you're going to get bycatch, which is going to be when you're salmon fishing, you get cobia, you're going to get mackerel, and bite you off. So you know that's a mackerel to bit you off. But you're going to get cobia, and you're going to get. Last year we had a big run on northern bluefin tuna. Okay. Did you get our longtail? Anyone get those last year? Guys, yeah, there was so many out there. It's ridiculous, particularly around the Diamond Reef, that area. So they're good size. They run about sort of 6 to 10 kilo on average. Go like the crazy on this light gear. Such great fun.
Where's Diamond Reef?
Diamond Reef's straight out off
Like a
the
straight
seaway.
fair.
So the reason why we call it the Diamond Reef, you'll have a look next time you're out there and I'll show you this. Because in the old days, talking like 30, 40 years ago, we didn't have GPS. We had landmarks, and if they burned the sugar canes, a pain in the ass because you couldn't see the landmarks. But looking at the mountain range, Springbrook sort of drops down like this, and then there's that we used to call it the gun sight, and then there's a mountain that goes like this off. I think it's behind about Eleanor or something. It's like that, and then it tapers down to Tweed Heads, and that's sort of the end there. Then in the background, you got Mount Warning. Now Mount Warning on the Diamond Reef, exactly where you are when you get it the next time. Have a look. and it'll be pretty well like this. And that's the diamond. Okay. That's when you're in the area, yeah. Just have a look next time, you'll see what I'm talking about. So now I've cleared up. So that's Mount Warning in the background. So that's Springbrook. That's sort of behind probably Robina or Nobby's area, sort of looking back on that angle. This is about around Tugun, I guess, or not quite, Burley Tugun sort of area. It's a little mountain in the background like that, but the Mount Warning in the background makes that diamond shape. Okay, so we've got our GPS marks. That's what we'll do next. So for the guys from Brisbane area, you guys do really well in deeper water up your way, like sort of Deep Tempest is a really good snapper area. And also back down if you're going through South Passage around Square Patch, I think you call it. That's a really good area, and down towards Point Lookout along that sort of 60 to 70 metre line is a really good area. And if you go south of Point Lookout just a little bit to the cathedrals, which is the northern end of our 36s, that's a really good area for snapper. And inside of that, which we talked about earlier, which is 50 metres, that's a really good area too. But 2700 is about Cape Morton, okay? That's if you look at it under 50 metres, 2700. And then right down the bottom, 2807, that's about off sort of Tugun. So that's the sort of areas, you've got a big area to look at. And the areas out the front here, the Diamond Reef is around, if you come down where it says 2756, look opposite, you see 153.30. That's around the Diamond area. There's two of them there. So one's actually there's three, sorry. So those 356s in a row there, not the first batch, the next batch down. 2756, 610, 153.31 is at the southeastern edge. So the Diamond Reef's an angle like we showed before in that sort of northwest to southeast. It's that sort of shape. It runs. The top end's in closer, and the bottom end's out wider, only by about 500 metres, and the length's around about 2k or k and a half. It's quite a big reef, and lots of pinnacles and lots happening, lots of mackerel biting off, and lots of sharks. Lots of sharks. But just try those close-in areas there. Early in the morning, right in the crack of daylight, don't get your live bait, just go straight there. There's bait everywhere around the areas there, everywhere. If you can't find bait exactly where you're fishing, if you went 300 metres, you'd find bait on the next pinnacle. You don't need to worry about getting it earlier. Under 70 metres, same deal, 2705. So that's sort of, I'm guessing around Tempest area, I think. Shallow Tempest maybe? Not sure. But it's sort of just south of Cape Morton, and we go all the way down to 2809. So 09's about just north of Tweed Heads, like of Tweed sort of thing. Best areas to fish on that one there, guys, if you're fishing off the Gold Coast, would be up around that 2738 or 2740 area. So what's that? Is that long ridge up there?
A-Reef.
A-Reef. Yeah, what do they call the FAD though?
FAD 14.
FAD 14. So,
Yeah.
so if you look where FAD 14 is, that's the same area. That ledge is like legendary for snapper fishing, particularly sort of May, June, July. It is about a. Sorry, mate.
Yeah.
It's just north of that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
that
right.
little slither. Yeah.
Yep, and it's about 28 k's from the seaway, run up, roughly speaking, or 30 k's. But a great reef to fish. And for those who fish out wider, so put all these marks in, and once you put them all in, you see where they are. The under 100 metre one, again, we'll start out up north, 2658, you're sort of north of the lookout. I guess you're off the reefs, just, what do they call those reefs, just north of Cape Morton, I can't remember what they're called, but you're straight east of there. And Tempest will be in all those marks there, 100%. When you come down our way, they go right down to 2814. So 2814's about off Cabarita, I guess. So this is a lot of grounds I really like to fish all this stuff. You just get You get bigger snapper in close. I'll tell you now, you get bigger snapper in close on the close reefs. You get consistent, average good size out deeper. Does that make sense? So you might only get 1 or 2 or 3 unless I school up, like I said earlier, in July in that close 18 fathom reef, which I haven't told you about yet. You might only get 1 or 2. But if you go out to the 50s, then they're on. Every fish is 60 centimetres, at least, okay? So that's the under 100 metre one, which is out 50 fathoms, 40 k's out. So the area like the fish up there is probably around that, if I go north, around that 27.42, 27.44 and 46. So that's sort of east of Jumping Pin and a bit north of Spot X. And then south, we go out sort of the Seaway. I really like that 28.05 and 07. So that's off Burley Head sort of thing. It's a really good area for big snapper and pearlies as well.
What are the bag limits now?
Bag limit for snapper is 8 in a boat and 4 per person maximum, and only 1 over 75 per 4. Is that right? Or, yeah, I think there's 2 per boat.
Yeah.
I think.
35.
35. Yeah, look, we don't keep them under about 38. Yeah, because they shrink. I think I told you this last time with the pearlies situation, I got in trouble. And it was definitely 40. But when I got back, it was like 37.98. It wasn't 38. I think it'll be 38. So, and the fisheries got me, checked me. But anyhow, they shrink on ice. So don't get one that you got to stretch it and it just makes measurement, because when you get back inside and it's on ice, it'll be probably 33. Okay. Take a photo on the stick, maybe. Okay, the 90 to 120 metre mark. So again, 26.56. That's just north of Cape Morton. Actually, those first few marks, known by my memory, are the containers. Has anyone fished the containers off Cape Morton yet? How'd you go, mate? Big pearlies?
Yeah, little birds.
Oh, little pearlies.
Yeah.
Okay, you're not trying to hold back on us there? Okay. It is a hit and miss situation, and it's got to be a day where there's no wind, no current, no nothing. Sea toads? Oh, did you really? Yeah, right. Oh, is that right, eh? Yeah, okay, nice. Yeah, there must have been school up there. Yeah, right. So there's 3 or 4 containers there of the many containers that are out there, but so containers fell off a ship once, okay, and they all landed in a certain area, and now they're loaded with fish at times. So give them a crack, and then as you come down further, you've got all off sort of Point Lookout area, which is 27.31, 35. Once you get down about 27.43, you're off Jumping Pin, and that's all there is. We fish east of Spot X and that. We were the other day. We're catching snapper and pearlies on jigs, but tonight we're talking about bait. Then you go down to, again, the areas I really like. So a lot of snapper caught on that 28.03, 04 area. So that's just a little bit wider than the 50 fathoms straight up the front here. Okay, you get a lot of rosy job fish there. Has anyone caught rosy jobs? They are like one of the best eating fish we get off the Gold Coast. Probably even maybe better than pearlies. And they're normally in that area. Okay, and you catch them the same as snapper. They're part of the snapper family, but they're just a longer stretch version. And then you got right down 28.13, which is down that's probably off about a bit north of Cabrita, maybe. I don't know. That might have been Hastings Point, might be Cabrita, whatever. But they're good areas as well for snapper. So we're finding the snapper. We've caught snapper at the 280 metres. So when we're catching flame snapper in 280 metres, we're catching snapper as well. So they don't necessarily just stay in close. They're never under 50 centimetres, are they? They're always 50 plus. They're nice eating because they're deep water fish, cold. Getting back to that 18 fathom spot at the front here. I think it's if you come on the, where it says under 50 metres, come down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The next 3, 7, 8, 9, where it all says 56, 56, 56, which is the opposite area to what I said earlier, that's the area. So you're about 2 miles inside of the diamond reef, about 4 k's inside the diamond reef, 2 nautical miles that is, and it's about 100. It varies from about 103 on top of the pinnacles to about 117, 120 feet, which is around about sort of 35 metres at the most. Okay.
That's where you got people.
Every year. Always get them every year. Some years you only get 1 or 2, but they're always around 90 or bigger. And some years they're very big. Some years you can't get them up. Has anyone fished there and caught big snapper yet? Same place you get the mackerel at the moment, on the 18 pinnacles. No? Okay. That photo you see on that photo we did on the Facebook one, old mate John Dunphy, saying Shimano. He's holding one up there, old guy with white hair, and that one was just under a metre. It's about 11, nearly 12 kilos. So that was on the same spot as well. Okay. Yep. Okay. So give the marks a go. Give it a crack. Is there anything else I can tell you about? Yes. One other thing. Care of your fish. Real quick. I know we're going out of time. Care of your fish. Snapper need to go on ice. Okay. Use a brain spike. Don't care if it's a cheapy thing like that or a flash elaborate type thing. Doesn't matter what it is. You can get so many different brain spikes these days. But you spike them in the head. Real quickly, last thing, and put them straight on the ice. Weird snapper. But his gill's sort of like this sort of thing here. It's in this area. He's got a soft part. You'll see it. It's actually like a little indentation. And just go in hard on an angle like so, or frontwards if you're going to go that way, if you're going to go that way. Up to you, but and just go in, hit the contact with his spine or whatever it is. Just twist it a bit. He'll curl up, and that'll be it. It's over. Okay, but the flesh is much better, firm. Doesn't go soft. Okay.
Dougie, if the weather's good, where are you going?
This weekend, look. I'll be honest, I'm going to give one more crack on the mackerel because I know they're going to be going after that. But I'll probably will have a snapper fish. I might go Saturday morning. that's true, it's going to work Saturday.
No, you're going to work.
I know. I'll be back early. Maybe. Maybe go, I meant. But definitely, that'll be the mackerel. But the Sunday, definitely on the snapper, yeah. So where we're going to go, look, it'll have to be a quick trip for me because I've got plans on Sunday. My wife's just there, but be careful. But I'm probably going to hit the 18s on that spot, that area, or the 24s, just north of the diamond though. So there's one spot I didn't tell you about, but it's on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 down on the under 50 metres, 27.54. That's one of my favourite snapper areas. So it's north of the seaway in about, it's on the outside edge of the 24, so around about 46 metres deep. Okay? And it always holds good snapper. Yep.
In the cooler months, are you prioritising closer reefs?
Yeah, definitely. So we'll do a lot of trips before work. So we'll go out, it doesn't get dark, daylight till like 6. So we'll try and hit the water at 5:30 and we're back in about 7:30. And sometimes you get your bag limit, you know. Yeah.
So there's no need to go out to like 50 fathoms?
No, look, in that particular, nowadays, if we're going to, we'd want to obviously put in like at least 6 hours to make it worthwhile, and we'll incorporate pearlies, jigging,
Yeah,
kingies,
a
we'll
bit
do
of
everything.
everything, you know.
So try and get a few of that, and then switch. But because it doesn't take long to get 8 snapper, you know, if they're on, it's quick. Yeah, if you've got 2 or 3 guys fishing, it's very quick. 2 drifts, then you've got to do something else. But nothing wrong with that. It's a good thing, you know. Yeah.
Do you think those deep water snapper are different?
Look, I do. I think they're a little bit different. They've generally got black bums on them, so they've been in mud or something. There must be something that holds them. you get it black on the scale under the scales, right? So I think they're in mud. I think they come from down south. And as the water gets cooler, they move north a bit. Oh, they do. Yeah, they're different. Yeah, the different body. They don't have much of a hump on the head, as well. You've noticed that? Not much of a hump. It's a good sized fish, but it's like a Moreton Bay snapper. Yeah. So I think there's obviously snapper, but not in the same family as in under 100-metre ones. Yeah. And some of the ones you're getting close are actually the most ugliest looking things ever. They've got conchs on their nose out here, and on the head too. And they might only be like 60 centimetres. Yeah. But the ones that they're always clean, fat, and very nice to eat. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you look at the tides heavily?
Yeah, I do. So I always say this every time. Morning, afternoon bite times are just on dark and just after dark. Just on dark, sorry. And daylight. And then the next tide's going to be like a high tide or low tide if it coincides similar time. But definitely 2 hours after high. No matter what time of the day.
If, with low tide, if you're hunting Saturday.
Yeah, Saturday morning. So
5:30 low.
that's right. So there will be bite tide just as the tide turns. There'll be bite time.
Yep.
Which I think
2
if you
hours
look,
after low tide?
no, it doesn't work that way. Only on high.
Only on high.
Don't ask me why. But it generally works halfway up on the run-in. So if it was near the top, you'll probably find it'll be a bite time around about maybe 9 o'clock or something like that. Does it say on there what it is?
Sorry, I would have said on Saturday.
So Saturday, yep. So
Saturday's low at 5:30.
yep. So you get a bite time maybe on low on the daylight, right on daylight,
Yep.
just for that little bit, and then it'll be a bit quiet. And I might come back on the bite just before high or halfway up tide for about an hour. But the definite bite time is going to be if high tide, lows at 4:30, highs at 10:30. It'll be about 12:30, 1 o'clock. It'll be the best bite time.
Yep.
Have you got the bite times there, Pete?
Sunday, but I'm looking at Tuesday, Wednesday.
Oh, yep.
And then low tide is at 8:30.
Yep. So it'll be afternoon bite time,
Yes.
or very early in the morning, like 3 o'clock in the morning, sort of thing.
3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah.
Don't go through the seaway in the
No.
dark.
Do you find the fish actually, when they screw up, are they on the pressure side or the...
Yeah, so definitely good point there too. So pressure points, no matter how deep the water, it works. Doesn't matter if it's 300 metres deep, same deal there on the front of the reef normally, if it's a bit of current running. So there's actually 3 spots on that reef at the front on the 18, so I said that we get the big ones. The top one is the best one, which is always on the current side normally. But for some reason, we had a lot of northerly running current in close here for months early in the year, and similar last year too. It ran north, but I never caught them on that end of the reef.
Did they move? No.
When it runs north. No, they stayed at the top end. Yeah, good question. You think they go the other end, right? But no.
Does the moon phase have
Yeah, it
effects?
does. So, we like it when the moon's in the sky, which is generally when like opposite to the full moon. So it's just gone full moon. So as the moon goes down, it stays longer in the sky in the mornings. Does that make sense? So as the moon gets nearly to the end, when it's a dark moon, it's up the whole day and sets just on dark. So that's when you get your long bite periods during the day. So at the moment, it's gone a few days past. By Sunday, it's probably nearly a week past or 5 days past. So you'll probably get a bite period later, up to midday, even a bit after. Yeah, before the moon sets. And moon sets a good time too. We get bite on that too. Moon rising, moon sets, another bite time. Yeah.
Out the front here, the strength of the current. I mean, I'm naive to it, but there must be a point where, low is good and strong is high. Where's that cut-off point?
The current?
Yeah, current.
No current's no good. So no run, no fun, they say.
Yep.
So you've got to have a bit of run. I like about a knot. So it's just a nice trickle.
Right.
Nice slow drift, nice trickle. Is a good thing. I don't use drift.
Yeah, about the same. One and a half.
Yeah.
So Saturday looking at half a knot
Yep.
in the southeast.
Okay, that's
To the southeast.
yeah, that's fine. That's perfect. Yep. But with something close, it can be altered a little bit differently.
Yeah, well, that is in close.
And some of my best Some of my best catches I fished with that pro were fishing like 4 kilos of lead in this 80 metres deep. It was ripping, like it was running 4 or 5 knots. As soon as you hit the bottom, you'd take out the slack and there'd be 3, 6 kilos snap on there in that raging current. They feed, they've got to work harder, they're hungry. Yeah. But it's really hard for us to fish it though. Doesn't necessarily mean they're not going to bite. Okay. All right, I think that's it, Stewie. We've done everything. Okay. Next is, just one last thing I want to show you. I always find one last thing. Bait, getting bait off the hooks is the other thing I want to tell you about when I do the bait, I forgot to tell you. But there's a little device like a little dehooker. So all you do above the bait well, you just hold the main line and just flip the fish like that, and it falls straight off into the well. No touching it, no spiking hands, no slipping out and jumping on the side of the boat. Okay? Check. Okay, Stewie, let's do it. Prizes tonight. First prize around $500. It's I think it's an 8 to 12 kilo spin stick. Throw whatever you really good on it, and a bunch of stuff. Going to go to. And thanks for coming along tonight, guys. A lot to take in. We didn't do any. We used to do this with the lure night, believe it or not. We used to do both together. We do it separately now. Reasons. Down the back, 26. Well done, mate. Okay, next one I think is still around about $250 or a bit more.
Thanks, mate.
Bits and pieces. Tools and make sure you got some sort of measuring device on the boat. I keep